a monthly webinar series dedicated to exploring the intersection of healthcare, clinical research, and social justice, and shining the spotlight on researchers across the UH system and the great work they're doing towards advancing science and medicine. I am Patricia Cherstiniak with the University Hospitals Clinical Research Center, and I will serve as your moderator for today. This month, we turn our focus to exploring research in nutrition in honor of Nutrition Awareness Month. First off, I'd like to introduce Alicia Thomas. Alicia Thomas is a 3-year veteran of clinical research and is the Director of Research Bionutrition for the William T. Doms Clinical Research Unit, also known as DCRU. The DCRU is a comprehensive research facility located on the 6th floor of the Lakeside building. It includes not only bionutrition, but also nursing and lab resources, informatics support, dedicated research equipment, project management, and finance services. The Bionutrition Core is available to all UH hospitals and affiliates of the CTSC and supports researchers and their participants by providing services and resources in a culturally sensitive, research-dedicated environment. The bionutrition team has earned national recognition by overseeing the collection of large nutrition data sets, has collected tens of thousands of dietary recalls, and has served as a master anthropometric trainer for large NIH projects serving a wide variety of populations. Some of the most popular requested resources and services include body composition evaluation through state-of-the-art DXA dietary intake assessment using gold standard research software and specialized meal preparation in the new metabolic kitchen. The bionutrition team includes 4 full-time staff and has over 115 years of combined clinical research experience. Welcome, Alicia. Our second panelist today is Heather Butcher. Heather Butcher is an outpatient clinical dietitian specialist at University Hospitals Cleveland Medical Center, Digestive Health Institute. She currently provides medical nutrition therapy, MNT, to help patients with weight management, disease prevention, and disease management. She specializes in the areas of GI disorders and conditions, weight management, intuitive eating, and cardiovascular health. Heather's educational background includes a master's in public health nutrition, and this has been utilized in the hospital to help develop and implement nutrition programs. She has helped to launch the nutrition portion of several programs to include the Executive Health Program, Bariatric Program, Cardiac Rehab Nutrition, and other programs. Heather has been involved for many years with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is the largest organization of food and nutrition professionals. She has a fellow designation of the Academy for all of the years of service. Positions she held in the professional organization include delegate of the Academy, and most recently, she has served as past president of the Ohio Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. She has won awards through the state affiliate to include Member Merit and Dietitian of the Year. Heather is currently the principal investigator for the research study called Intuitive Eating Focused MNT Outcome on Intuitive Eating Survey, IES2, Scores and Dietary Patterns. The study looks at intuitive eating education within medical nutrition therapy in those seeking weight management counseling. Everyone, please welcome Heather.
Thank you.
We've asked our panelists to prepare a presentation for today. After they share their wisdom and experience with us, we will have a question and answer dialogue. With that in mind, I now invite Alicia to the stage to present.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Alicia. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it, and I'm really happy to be here today. Well, first of all, I love talking about bionutrition. I love talking about what we do. I love the exposure, and I'm always excited about what we do here and being here at UH. So without further ado here, we have this head slide here. I always start off by presenting you my team. And I probably start crying in a minute just because we have somebody out on leave, and we love her dearly. But anyway, this is the team. This is the A team. And it's not Alicia's team, it's just the A team. They're just fabulous. So none of the work that we can do here would be done if it weren't for these three ladies standing in front of me in this picture. So I'll talk about them in a little bit, but I just want to always give a shout out to them because they're so wonderful to work with. So you did a really good job about saying like who we are in that bio. So I just wanted to kind of show you also, this is another way of looking at this. So we have a clinical research unit here on Lakeside 65 at UH. It has been funded in the same manner as for 60 years. We just had a big celebration this summer. And this is just, we have one of three units in the city that are kind of set up kind of similarly. So we have one at Cleveland Clinic, and there's also one at Metro Health Medical Center. So we have a robust operations department. So we have finance, we have regulatory, we have an amazing administrator, we have an outstanding medical director. We have more than just nutrition here. So I just wanted to bring that out. We have an amazing nursing staff. We have sample processing, great lab resources, and we also have bioinformatics. So it is very much an all-inclusive in and outpatient facility here for any investigator who would like to come and see us and use our services. So this is a very outdated slide. I still love it. It's so old school. I still use it in almost every presentation. We just change the names around a little bit. Okay, so back to this is our DCRU bionutrition team. So we have, and I think she said, we have, Patricia, I think you said over 100 years experience. I think we have close to 130 years experience. So we have someone that's been at this institution for over 50 years. We have someone that's been at this institution for over 20 years. We have someone approaching 10 years. And most of those years, if not all of them, were spent working in clinical research. So there's a vast experience and muscle memory for bionutrition and for research nutrition in this core, in this division. I started somewhere else and came to UH about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I think, I won't give you the date I started, maybe later, but 30 years, I think I said. So anyway, it's really impressive, and not many divisions nutrition divisions across the country can really say that. So we are small, but we are mighty. We also have a new employee who is going to be starting with us. So he will be just a PRN for now, and we also have an open position. So we are looking to really grow our division just because of the past few years we've been plucking along and getting pretty popular. Our backgrounds, we have several people that have a nutrition background. So we have someone with Jackie has a diet tech. She's a registered diet tech. We have someone with a 4-year degree in nutrition. We have experience in community nutrition. We have experience in food service. So we really do have a lot of skill set here on the unit. Now this picture of these three right now that you see, they're all sitting at their desks. So you think, Alicia, what do you do to these people? Do you make them sit down all day? Well, these are what they do. A lot of their day is spending on the phone talking to participants that they never meet. So these are, this is in our call center, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, but they are not tethered to their phone. So they do get up once in a while, but they spend a lot of time talking to people who we'll never ever meet. And so one of the joys of my job is, honestly, I get to do evaluations, and I just did an evaluation on one of our employees, and one of the things that happened is that I recently had to take over for some of her dietary recalls. And I went into the patient room, and the patient said, "Oh, you're not Wanda." And so I said, "No, I'm not, but I can get her for you." And they said, "Well, that's good, because I've been talking to her for years on the phone. I wanted to finally meet her." So this is really a good, that's just something, it was just a beautiful exchange between a participant and me that I thought that is just awesome, that they remember our dietary calls to them, and they appreciate it, and they remember our names, even that. Okay, so here are some of our bionutrition services. I'm not going to go over all of this, but we have a really good reputation. And I hate to I always feel like, oh, she's like rattling around chains. Well, I'll tell you what, we have a really good reputation. We have such a good reputation that we have investigators across the country who seek our involvement in some of their dietary intake studies because we're so clean. We really have a very, very good QC system in place for all of our data. And we also can do other things to help an investigator. So if you need help, writing the methodology for something, if you're going in for a grant proposal and you just need a little help on study design, if you have a lot of nutrition data that you're working with, and a lot of our investigators end up with boatloads of nutrition data, we're happy to help you dissect some of that and tell you what it kind of means. So we really do a lot more things for our investigators, and we're more than happy to serve in that capacity at any time. So this is a very busy slide, and I had talked about maybe I should make this into 2 or 3, but just focus on the pictures because I think that kind of tells the better story. So we can do a lot of things. Even though we're small and mighty, we can really do a lot. So of course we can do things that require a license. So we can do lifestyle intervention. We can be an interventionist for you on your research study. We can provide nutrition education, things like that you would see clinically. We can for sure do that. We also can do body composition. So we have a background and expertise in neonatal body composition as well as anthropometry. So we have really been utilized as a master trainer for a lot of other NIH studies, for multi-trial studies, and have gone to other centers and helped investigators and study teams know how to do these measurements so they can collect this data. As a matter of fact, I was over at Metro yesterday helping their clinical nursing staff with learning how to do some of these measurements on infants when they're born. So they're assessing body composition on a clinical level. And so that's something that we have a background in. With that, we also have dietary recall assessment. I think we mentioned that earlier in the bio, that's our most requested service. By far it is. And this is something that you probably are well aware of. You probably have an app on your phone and you're tracking your diet, you're tracking your sodium, you're tracking your fat, your calories, whatever. Everybody has been exposed to that at some point probably. And so the software that we use for that is called NDSR. So this is software that was developed by the School of Public Health from the University of Minnesota. And it's like MyFitnessPal on steroids. And so if you were a researcher and you were looking at dietary intake and you really want the cream of the crop, this is the software that you would use. And so we're fortunate enough that we have that here in-house, and we are it's utilized quite a bit. I think she said we've done 10,000, tens of thousands of dietary records. Well, we've been using NDSR for decades. And so it's a very well utilized resource. It's not cheap to use. I think the software license for this is close to $10,000 a year. So maybe that some of the investigators, if they're on, they understand why we charge them a small little fee every year to use this. But it is really a national standard. And so the software that we use is used really almost at all the clinical research centers across the country that kind of have the same grant support that we have. And so when you purchase the software, everybody has to be trained on it. So everybody in the country that uses this is being trained the exact same way. And not only that, they have every export, also all the data that you get out of this software package all looks the same. And so if you're working with an investigator across the country, your export will look the same as their export. So you can merge data, you can do lots of cool things with this data. So it's just really, really powerful, and it can do a lot. So if anybody's interested in getting a one-on-one on this, we love to give it. So it's just really great software. We're also, as like I said before, that picture of all the ladies on the call from the call center. So we work with investigators who we never speak to the patient face to face. We're only doing these dietary recalls from our phone. And so MDSR allows you to do these, data entry into your computer as you're talking to the patient on the phone in real time, and you're getting constant cueing from the software to remind you to ask all these extra questions related to their diet. We also do this across all time zones. So we're collecting dietary information from research participants across the country. And so that means different time zones. That means having a very flexible schedule and getting, being very innovative in how we schedule each other, because we only have so many people to do this, during the week. The other thing that this software allows us to do, we can estimate what's called healthy eating index. And I just want to talk about it because every single one of our investigators who uses NDSR and who is doing dietary collection on the DCRU is also requesting this healthy eating index. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll just give you the quick and dirty on that. And so if you just want to know, like, how well does my patient population eat compared to the U.S. dietary guidelines. So that's what this index does. And so if you're the higher number, the better. If you're doing an intervention study and you're looking at, like, well, how well are they eating before the intervention? And then you can look at the healthy eating index after the intervention. And so it's a nice, simple number that has a lot of data behind it. And it's not just looking at all the good things that you're doing, it's also looking at some of the not so good things that people do in their diet. So the DEXA is the other piece. So I have a picture, and so if you look at the top right, that's our DEXA table from the Hologic website. It's not our table. And then next to it is one of the printouts. So the picture on the left is one of the printouts of a whole body DEXA. So this is a research dedicated piece of equipment that we purchased a few years ago that when you look at DEXA, you're thinking of like bone density. So that's what this machine was made to do. But the gravy on it is that for years and years and years, investigators have been doing body composition work with it. So finally, Hologic said, well, if they're going to all use body composition, we better build some really cool software that goes with it. So they have. So we not just do this for bone density. We do most of the time, we're doing DEXA studies on our unit for whole body imaging. And so the whole body imaging is a really easy way to assess everyone's body fat. And maybe that's good or bad to some people, but it's really it's a gold standard, it's quick. It is a low dose X-ray. So there are some populations that we cannot do this with, for instance, pregnant women. But the software that we have, we can do any age on this. So far, we've done peds, not at newborns, but I think we have newborn software capabilities. We just have to tap it. But anyway, we can do really, any person. This is as a weight limit of 500 pounds. You can be 7 feet tall, and we can still put you on that DEXA machine and scan you and get you get numbers for your investigator. So if you look at that picture in the middle on the top, so there's like this long rectangular box, like right around your belly. So that's really an important thing right now that everybody's interested in. They're interested in this visceral adipose tissue. So this is that metabolically, hormonally active fat that kind of, the more you have, the worse off it is. So people are really looking at this. And this is a quick and easy and kind of a cheaper way of looking at this, at these components and body composition. And then the last, but certainly not least thing I wanted to mention is our metabolic kitchen. So this is a brand new piece of service that we offer here at UH. And so it is the only one in Northeast Ohio that I'm aware of. So there's not one at Cleveland Clinic, there's not one at Metro Health Medical Center. And as a matter of fact, the first study that we started using our metabolic kitchen is a Cleveland Clinic investigator who is looking at amino acid supplementation in people with liver disease and sarcopenia. So this is something that we do in our metabolic kitchen. So the picture on the bottom is just showing you there's 2 women there loading a cooler. We had to be very innovative. So this process of getting this kitchen built you know, I try to explain to my family, they think it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, imagining opening a brand new kitchen, imagining having to do all those things to get just a kitchen, you know, a brand new restaurant, I mean. And so it's a big deal. So this took a year. Definitely we had our operations manager was very busy doing this, but we had this taped off on our unit for a year. And so when it finally opened, which was, I think the date was it was February 10th. I'm looking at the date when we were stamped to, you know, approved to operate. So that means we can run any metabolic diet study now out of this kitchen. So it's basically used for very, very detailed feeding studies. And so it's not going to be a tray line like the main kitchen. It's not going to serve all of our research patients up here on Lakeside 65, but it is here for investigators who really want a dietary intervention. They're looking at a very controlled, weighed. We want to know exactly what the patient's eating. We want to know all the nutrients involved. And so everything that's been calculated can be prepared in this kitchen, can be pre-weighed, can be post-weighed, and documented that way. So that's what this little area is going to be used for. So a little bit about our investigative teams. Again, this is a lot of, I won't talk about all of these because I know I'm watching my time, but we have a lot of different types of studies. And so we have a lot of different divisions here. We have psychiatry, we have oncology, we have infectious disease, we have endocrinology. The list goes on and on. That's just like the tip of the iceberg for studies that are being done that utilize nutrition services, meaning bionutrition division. So the DCRU has lots of other studies. So these are just the ones that have some kind of interest in nutrition, and they have asked us to help them with their studies. So this is giving you a list of some of those. A lot of them are body composition, and some people with disease, some people without disease. Some of them are looking at dietary intervention studies. We have a new study starting. They're looking at prostate cancer patients, and they want to know if we change the Mediterranean diet around a little bit. You know, let's look at their prostate cancer, and look at their tumor growth and things like that. We have community projects that are going on. They're looking at food insecurity and looking at women who are pregnant they're in high risk population, and looking at what happens to their diet. So back to that healthy eating index. What happens to that before the intervention, and then what happens after the intervention? Does their diet change? So we do lots of different dietary intakes on lots of different people. People with HIV, people looking at, we have investigators looking at how do you reduce stroke risk factors in African-American men. So this is just, you know, somebody says, what's your favorite study? I'm like, I don't even know. I mean, there's so many of them, but these are all such great studies. Some of them don't use a ton of nutrition. Some of them just use a little bit, but I mean, they're all interested. And so that means kind of a lot to me as a nutritionist, that they're interested in that. So lastly, I want to talk about our research participants, because, you know, you think about, like, why would somebody do a study? So maybe they have the disease. Maybe they don't. Maybe the protocol might help them, it might not. And so there are a lot of questions when these research participants come in, and everyone that walks through that door, and this is one of the reasons why I love what I do, is that they're here because they really truly want to be here. They're here because they signed a consent form that said, yes, I want to help. Whether it helps me or not is one thing, and in some of the studies it does help them, but also it's really, I just want to be able to help. And that really melts my heart, because it's really truly selfless, and they really care about the lives and the health of their neighbor. So to me, that speaks kind of volumes about the kind of research participants that we have coming into our unit. So again, what is the best part? What do I like the most? And I love everything I do here. I mean, there's nothing, yeah, we all have our little, you know, day-to-day issues that happen, but it's the team, it's what we do, it's the diversity, it's the population that we serve, it's looking at health, you know, parameters and how it impacts health in lots of different people. So anyway, that's a little bit about nutrition up here in the DCRU.
Thank you so much for that overview. Talking to or listening to you gets me jazzed up. I'm not in nutrition, but I just love the passion and dedication that you and your team have. Thank you, and I can't wait to get to the Q&A. We can go into further detail. Next up, we have Heather. Please, I welcome you to the stage, and you can give your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, everybody. You can see it? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Our research study is a very small study, and it takes a look at the provider level and changing what we do with patients. And this research study was actually created during the pandemic. We wanted to repackage weight management in a different way that offered gentle messaging or simplified nutrition messages, as people during the pandemic had a lot of uncertainties and fears and even grief because of the pandemic. The basic research question is, what can we do to keep patients engaged in nutrition while facilitating change within this hard time? During this time, we may not have always wanted to count calories or portion. However, patients did want to lose weight and they wanted to be healthy. Some people during this time had so much worry that they could go all day without eating. And for those that know weight loss, this is surely a way to keep weight on or continue even gaining it. So if we integrated a slightly different approach, how would that look like, and what would that do? Dietitians educate on healthy, balanced meals, and within the study examine ways how people could feel better in terms of energy with simplified messaging. The patients like this, and we hope you enjoy it as well. Once again, this research title is Intuitive Eating Focused Medical Nutrition Therapy Outcomes on Intuitive Eating, 2 Scores and Dietary Patterns. Okay. The purpose of this study was to determine if teaching elements of intuitive eating in MNT from outpatient registered dietitians, can improve understanding and application of intuitive eating while also learning how to eat better from the nutrition counseling. Intuitive eating is measured by an intuitive eating scale called an IES-2 that ranks how one feels in relation to eating habits. The study also took a look at eating patterns and trends that are correlated or connected to intuitive eating outcomes. The study design was a prospective cohort study offering a little bit of elements of intuitive eating within medical nutrition therapy for up to a total of 3 visits. Additional encounters typically occurred 4 to 6 weeks after the previous encounter. And patients approached for inclusion of the study were those generally seeking weight management, general health, and healthy eating. And for those on the call that may not know what a dietitian does, we provide a long process within medical nutrition therapy that involves assessment, intervention, nutrition, diagnosis, monitoring, and evaluation. So it's a very thorough process. Now, within the intervention, I have 3 different spheres, or we had 3 different spheres that would be translated to the patient for this intervention. And these spheres would be, 1 would be numbers, 2 would be structures, and 3, the feel. With the numbers, the sphere of the provider created awareness of calories consumed and are calories needed for a desired outcome. For the focus of these patients, we were trying to reduce calories as a way for patients to achieve some weight loss, using portion control by plate method and selecting healthier foods and beverages to improve in this area. The other thing that we wanted to do was work on the structure of intake. Within this sphere, the provider tries to shift the structure of eating in order to influence the metabolism, to increase energy expenditure. And this is, what's called the thermal effect of eating. How we eat, we can burn more. Key elements within this sphere is 3 meals a day, protein at all meals, and encouraging intake to be spread throughout the day. So that was part of this intervention. And the last sphere would be the feel. And so in this sphere, we kind of implemented just a couple elements of intuitive eating. And these elements was education given on early hunger cues versus late hunger cues. Through questioning and the assessment, the provider could readily identify hunger of patient. The intervention also looked at talking about satiety versus overeating and what that could feel like. And once again, the providers would be able to identify from eating and what the patient asked where they were going after these meals. The other thing is that we wanted patients to feel better after eating. So post-meal goal was to have energy and stamina and contentment with awareness of how unstructured meals and certain foods and beverages could influence cravings and drive this intake. The population, here are some of the study populations are shown on the slide. This study has been going on a little bit over a year. We put it together in 2020, and at the end of 21 started to see these participants. There was a total of 59 participants. 60% of them had 1 to 2 follow-ups. Study participants included both men and women, with women making up majority of the participants, but these patients were from all different backgrounds and areas. Research participants aged from 18 to 72 years of age, with majority of participants within the age of 20 to 40 years of age. The main reason why patients came to see the dietitian and these research participants was mainly because of morbid obesity, and PCOS. And for those that don't know about PCOS is a polycystic ovarian syndrome and is an endocrine disorder characterized by difficulties with weight loss, even weight gain, and insulin resistance. So these patients really have a tough time, in this area of weight management. All right, so what was being measured in the study? The first sector, general demographics, weight, height, BMI. The second column is stuff related to medical nutrition therapy. We're looking at the trends, the number of meals, protein at meals, nutrition and exercise, calories, protein, fiber, beverage amounts, and even the types. The third column is the Intuitive Eating Survey 2 score, the IES-2. And you can see that there are 4 different subsets within the Intuitive Eating score. And we wanted to take a look at these last 2 subsets in particular during this time. The reliance on hunger and satiety cues, and a newer area called body food choice conversions. That's a tongue twister. And this is identifying how we feel after we eat. So this research has taken a look at those 2 sectors within the IES-2. All right, so a little of the discoveries. Our research is finalizing, and we still have yet to do the analytics on this. But I wanted just to show some trends that we saw once again through this pandemic. This graph shows the hunger and satiety subset. And the questions asked within this survey would be, I trust my body to tell me when to eat. I trust my body to tell me what to eat. I trust my body to tell me how much to eat. And this graph shows on the y-axis this level of intuitive eating. The higher the score, the more intuitive one might eat, with 5 being the top. Along the x-axis, I just took a set of participants just to show the trend, includes a number of the participants I selected here, and for each encounter. And there is a trend that people can improve on hunger and satiety through this. This area, this body food choice congruence scale, this once again shows how people can feel after they eat. And some of the questions that looked at here is most of the time I desire to eat nutritious foods. That's very powerful when we are trying to work on weight. I mostly eat foods that make my body perform efficiently well, and I mostly eat foods that give my body energy and stamina. So this is the area that the trends we're also seeing. Once again, this graph shows the subscale. On the y-axis, it shows the level of intuitive eating, with 5 being the top, 5 being the most intuitive. And then the x-axis shows the participants and the encounter, and you can see that there can be a trend up. Once again, we don't know if this is statistically significant, but as providers, the patients, they will feel this, and we get excited when they feel it, whether or not the numbers are statistically significant. We looked at, we're looking at weight too. We looked at a couple things, and I just pulled a couple things for this presentation. But here in this graph, we had weight at each encounter. And once again, the y-axis shows the weight in pounds, the x-axis shows the weight by participant. And we talked about these elements of intuitive eating. We're talking about, structuring intake, and we're talking about changing things. And some people could lose weight, and the trend is that we had seen a decrease in weight with this. So then we think, what are potential implications for the future? Like, why do this? I mean, we did this during the pandemic so that we could have more gentle messaging. People had a hard time doing, things, and, we wanted to streamline patients so that we could improve something. And when I look at the future from doing this, we kind of speculate that PCOS is an area that this would work very well in. Just based off the trends, it worked well for morbid obesity on PCOS, but it was the PCOS patients who benefited from an intervention like this. Many of these patients initially report difficulty regulating carbohydrate intake. They would leave meals and be driven to eat. With introducing these few elements of intuitive eating, these patients learned to identify when they needed to eat and needed to eat carbohydrates. It helped them also gauge the right amount and type of carbohydrates too. So, we think about, all dietitians provide MNT. Can dietitians, instead of all the calories and carb counts, should we or could we use this body food choice convergence and consider the patient's degree of contentment after eating with what they have consumed, and energy to help guide meal development within this population? So this population was very excited because a lot of them said they looked at food in a different light, and that's what we want. The other thing is, if we take a couple of these elements of intuitive eating, can we have better improved adherence to eating plans? If eating plans are too restrictive, the body will have a way of driving intake or driving overeating. And so I see that often. If we implement some of these elements, could we have better adherence? Another area that we could dabble into is this weight loss pharmacology. There's a lot of people on weight loss medications, and it's great because it will drive the weight loss in many. But there are some patients that, can be seen that are not eating because they don't have this appetite. But now that structure of eating is really delaying their ability to burn from the eating, so they can go all day without eating or not having the protein and carbs. So can elements of intuitive eating differentiate between hunger and appetite as a different modality to get these patients continuously with a structure that would help them to lose weight instead of plateau it? I just wanted to give a little bit before I say thank you. University Hospitals Digestive Health Institutes has a Horitz Nutrition Research Grant call for proposals. And this grant has been established to support research projects that accelerate discovery, innovation, and translation in the field of nutrition and dietetics. And this funding was secured with efforts by Dr. Dumont, Kim Preben, and Gina Bayless. So want to thank them for all the efforts of supporting research within our area. For more information, you can contact any one of us, but Gina Bayless would be somebody that you could go to for more information on this. And there is a rolling submission process occurring in June and December. So for those fellow dietitians who would like to start to research, maybe this will prompt you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for talking about the importance of intuitive eating. I do want to get more into that during our Q&A, but the one thing that I picked up is like having people really trust their bodies and have a healthy relationship with food. Like that's for all of us, right? Whether we're in the research study or not. Thank you again for sharing the details of your study. And again, I can see your passion and dedication to this work. I do want to point out that it's this kind of research and work that Heather and Alicia are doing that add to UH's rich 150-year history of research and innovation. If both of you can turn your videos back on, we would like to get to know you a little bit better in your work and your thoughts on some research topics and access and health inequities in your fields and medicine in general. And for those in attendance, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So in order to achieve these research innovations and medical breakthroughs and all of this great stuff we're learning, one has to first become involved in research. So the first question I have for both of you is what led you to become interested and involved in clinical research in the first place? And Alicia, if you want to take that first, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, I fell into it. I didn't graduate school and say, oh, I can't wait to be a research nutritionist. That was like the last thing on my plate. But I was working in long-term care. My mentor at the time was also working in long-term care. We were consultants, and she decided to leave to take a position in clinical research for the perinatal clinical research unit at Metro Health. And she called me about a week into it and said, you got to come to work with us. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I fell into it. I literally went there. I started on one research study and I remember the IRB number. I remember everything about it. And I was like a research coordinator for this one investigator for this one study. And he was looking at neonatal metabolism in women that had gestational diabetes and women who didn't have gestational diabetes. So that kind of explains, back to my slides, why all that baby stuff is there, because for 18 years I lived that. But that's kind of how I got started, and I just got the hook, and I just loved it. I loved everything about it. And as a nutritionist, you know, we love our patients and we love what we're doing. We love like to see progress and we'd like to see people get better. But this was like a kind of a cross to me between like health and wellness and clinical. I mean, it was like everything kind of all together kind of came together for me. And I loved it. Everybody I talked to was like, yeah, I'll be in your study. So I just fell in love with it. When I retire, I'm going to go back to being just a recruiter. Like whoever wants me, I'm going to do that. So.
Very nice. Thank you. And Heather, what's your story?
Oh, I'm small time compared to Alicia for sure. So I took some MBA coursework years ago. I want to say about 10 years ago, and it prompted me to start looking at outcomes a little bit more. My first research study was a retrospective study years ago, looking at nutrition programming within cardiac rehab. You know, I'm always trying to look at how can we show the value of the dietitian. my mind just kind of goes there. And with that, looking at outcomes, because if we show value, we need those numbers, and that's how I got started into it. And then when the pandemic came, I was like, okay, can we repackage something here? And then once again, thinking about the outcomes. And this is now leading me to want more. Like, I feel like now the outcomes are needed to continue. And so we're now plotting another round of research and trying to get more people involved and trying to streamline this within DHI.
Yes, thank you. We do have a quick question in the chat. How would one get a referral for weight loss to speak with a dietitian? Would that be through the person's PCP?
Yes, you can go through your primary care physician, and they can order a nutrition referral. We can contact any one of us, even for a paper trail. But the easiest thing is that if it's a UH provider, they can go in there and submit a nutrition referral.
Thank you. And Alicia, I have a specific question for you. So in the bio and in your presentation, you mentioned the word bionutrition. So how is that different from the word nutrition that we hear on a more day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I get that a lot. I'll be honest with you. So the organization that I am a part of in the CTSE world is called the National Association of Research Nutrition. And at one point, we didn't discover the word bionutrition, but we decided that we're going to hijack that word, because what we do in clinical research units isn't just nutrition stuff. It's not just lifestyle. It's not doing what a clinical dietitian needs to do, because that's a very important job. We're doing all these other things. And so it's more of a more inclusive about really what we do and what represents us, because we're not just doing, the standard nutrition assessments and all those things. We're doing, we have a metabolic kitchen. We have these very, very detailed, body composition studies and lots of things like that. So it's just a more encompassing term.
Thank you. I was looking for my mute, unmute button. And Heather, a specific question for you. What is the definition, or how can you describe intuitive eating? It seems to be very popular. We're hearing about it. It seems, from my perspective, it seems to be this really good thing. But what can you tell our audience? What does that mean, and how is it showing up?
Intuitive eating actually has 10 components to it. And it's, a way for the body, honoring the body, honoring the hunger and satiety. And there's a lot to it. So within this particular research, I took 2 out of the 10 elements, because when we look at eating, we want to make sure we feel something. See, that it's not just to me about the numbers. It's not, I can say structure is a really big thing. And I can say, okay, have 3 meals and we have the protein, but is your energy dropping here? Why did you ignore this? Or, can we have a snack here so then you don't get so ravenous so that at dinner time, you're overeating. And I've been doing this for a long time. The body will find a way to drive intake. People can wake up in the middle of the night and eat because they didn't eat right during the day. And I have to unravel that some way. So then by unraveling that, then we got to find a way, what should we do with weight management? Should we just focus on the numbers and just count? We'll take patients there, but then I'm like, well, how do you feel right here? Because I think you're hungry here. What do we do? And we might not be able to answer that today. And this is not for everybody, right? This is not going to be for everybody. It's going to be those patients that need a different approach to weight management because they've done it and they know how to count it. They know what to select, but now there's been a separation between the mind, body, and the food. And And so this helps to reconnect it in a more gentle way. Meanwhile, they feel better. Meanwhile, they lean out, and meanwhile, the weight loss. So sometimes I start with this and then focus on the feel, and then the numbers and the weight start to follow later. Get them engaged.
Thank you. Thank you for walking us through that. The next question we have for both of you, and I think this was alluded to a little bit, how are you seeing nutrition being integrated or connected with other fields of study, such as bioinformatics or genomics or neurobiology? How are you seeing those connections? And Heather, if you want to go first.
Wow. I was thinking about this. I mean, there's a lot of research coming out. I'm just thinking about the genomics or the nutrition genomics and how nutrition can affect gene expression. And so, down the line, we take a look at how can we influence gene expression by what we eat. And that's a very powerful thing is, because right now when we come in, I'm not looking at the gene expression right now. I'm just like, okay, here's a diet. This is where we have to go. And how do you feel with that? But that area is growing and is something that we could start taking a look at down the line here.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. It starts with these, clinical, nutrition studies that are going on. It starts with, with what Heather's doing. It's starting with that. It's funny because one of the things that I never thought in a million years that we'd be doing nutrition studies with like a disease like COVID, like that would never, there's just so much out there. And, nutrition, everybody knows about nutrition. Everybody thinks everybody eats, everybody knows about nutrition. So our investigators, when I first started, we had like 1 or 2 studies that had nutrition on it. Now not everybody, but we have a lot more nutrition just because it's becoming more, it's more important than what people have have studied in the past. So I agree. I think that it's, you're going to see drastic studies, and they're already being done, like bench science for sure. They're already looking at gut and how important the gut is, and looking at different diet changes in diet, and looking at different diseases and how you can change them just with diet. So the thing about a dietitian that's old like me, we used to tell people like one thing, like do this, don't do that, blah blah blah. And now we all know, like, no, what works for you may not work for you, and there's lots that goes behind that is because of who you are and what you're made up of. And so I think it's exciting to be a nutrition. I really do. I mean, I don't know why you would want to do anything else.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, here's another question. If there was 1 or 2 podcasts or books that you wish everyone could have a copy of or to listen to, what would it be? A podcast or book that everyone could have a copy of or listen to, what would it be?
You want me to go? I'll go first.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to be old fashioned and say the book. There's 2. There's one that I really liked, and this is, 1987. It's how to get your kids to eat but not eat too much, and this just ties into starting with this definition of normal eating by Ellen Sauter. And I'm just going to read a couple lines because this is what I constantly think about. Like when I think about transforming people, it's not just about the diet, it's about how can we eat normally. Normal eating is being able to eat when we're hungry and continue until you're satisfied. It's being able to choose foods that you like and truly get enough of it, not just stop because you think you should. Normal eating is being able to use some constraint in the food selection to get the right foods, but not be so restrictive you meet out on pleasurable foods. Normal eating is giving your permission to eat, and it goes on. So it's not this rigid pattern. And so I do like that book.
Thank you.
Wow, you're prepared. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb too. I'm going to say this is not what you probably want to hear from me, but there's two things that come to mind. And one of the things is I kind of like these fringe theorists. And I don't mean like you should go and like buy their books and like live by them, but I think that they have a lot of interesting components that make people more aware of where they get their food. And so you probably know who these people are, like Dr. Greger, like How Not to Die guy, and you know, Apollon. And so like there are people though that kind of give you like these basic things about, hey, this should be more simple. Life should be like, think about what you're eating. So there's that group, and they're probably being poo-pooed by any dietitian that's on this, but I don't care. And then the other thing is, I think everybody needs like good cookbooks, because COVID taught people how to cook. People want to eat. It's expensive eating out, and people can do a better job controlling their diet. So I think investing in really good diets or diet books or cookbooks. So my dad always had a Fannie Farmer. I mean, you can Google anything, but I would go back to Fannie Farmer every once in a while. But my favorite one now is the Food Lab, because we were like baking bread and learning the science behind all that stuff. So I love the Food Lab because it talks about all that, you know, chemistry stuff. So
Good.
hers was,
Thank
her answer was better. By Ellen Satter, but by
No judgment, no judgment. Both answers are equally of good merit. All is well. I wish we had more time to talk and have a further and deeper discussion. I know I am enlightened and I have learned a lot, and I want to say the audience has too. As we wrap up, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time to talk with us about your incredible work, the importance of research, and